Finish the cup and the morning still feels sluggish? Hands still cold, the man's morning showing up less and less? Is age quietly turning down your energy knob one notch at a time? In United States, I've met far too many like that, walking regularly, thinking they sleep enough, yet daybreak still lags a beat. I am Dr. Emily Carter, urologist, and this morning's story begins with Mr. Duarte Santos in Villanova de Gaia. The routine is still on point, it's just that the body no longer answers as quickly as before. I don't promise a miracle. I promise a small ritual you can do right now with the very cup of coffee warm in your hands, and a very simple way to measure it tomorrow morning. At the end of the video, I'll give you a 14-morning map to jot down the smallest difference. No one grades you. Only you will know you're coming back. If these lines touch you, stay with the channel and subscribe so you don't miss the next part. I'll go all the way into how to upgrade your cup of coffee without changing the habit. And so I can speak more precisely in the next video, please give me a very light signal. Leave a 1 if you find this helpful, leave a 0 if it hasn't landed, and type exactly one word, stuck. I read everything, unhurried, like the way we relearn our own breathing. Now, don't rush to add anything to the cup. Before changing ratios and adding ingredients, we need to understand why, after 50, mornings keep running out of breath. Thirst signals fade, vessels lose elasticity, hormones change, rhythm. In other words, coffee only wakes the eyes. If we want the body to truly open the door, we have to flip a very small switch, and that's what I'll reveal in the next section. Have you ever set your cup of coffee on the windowsill, looked at the fine mist over the Dom Luis Twine Bridge, and felt as if someone were holding back a beat inside your chest? You wake on time, you do your usual lap along the riverbank, yet your mind stays sluggish. Your eyes are open, but the body won't turn over. In Villanova de Gaia, Mr. Duarte Santos told me the very same thing. The routine is still in tune. It's just that morning no longer arrives on cue. When people hear age, many give up, but the body after 50 isn't broken. It simply changed the alarm tone and is waiting for us to learn to listen. Thirst no longer rings loudly, so you think one cup is enough. Blood vessels aren't as elastic as in youth, so the flow needs a different way of knocking. Hormones don't want to be pushed, so any hurry backfires. Coffee props open the eyelids, but baseline energy lives elsewhere. In how the vessels open, how the cells nod, how hormones have enough raw material to work in peace. The day Mr. Duarte paused for 30 seconds before his first sip, placed a hand on his chest, and asked, "What am I missing today? Water, a breath, or just a tiny switch?" That was when his mornings began to return. Because if we keep pouring coffee onto a channel that hasn't been widened, energy will swell and then collapse like waves beating against a stone embankment. So what is that switch? Where is it? And how do we flip it so the cup of coffee doesn't just wake the eyes, but also opens the door for the body? Imagine your body as an orchestra in a stone-vaulted rehearsal room in Porto. The morning overture will sound brash if the brass hasn't warmed up. Your blood vessels are the horns. If the vessel walls are stiff, the tone turns harsh. Hormones are the beat. If they lack raw material, the rhythm will falter, and coffee is the first tap of the baton on the conductor's stand. It gives the starting cue, but the music only truly rings out when every section is ready. After 50, the vessels need a reminder to soften, the cells need a tiny current to open the gates, and the hormones need small building blocks to keep the roof from leaking on a windy day. Coffee on its own is sharp but short-lived. Add the right materials and it becomes an orchestra that breathes. Don't think about drastic changes. The only thing we're doing is shifting the cup of coffee from the role of alarm bell to the role of baseline fuel. Have you noticed that the smoothest mornings aren't from a second cup, but from blood that warms a notch and a breath that drops one vertebra deeper? On foggy days, Mr. Duarte moved his chair by the window so the cup sat closer to the light. The warmth in his chest followed that light. Not a miracle, just the body catching a timely signal. The question worth asking each morning: do we want a sharp yank on the cord or a steady lamp? If it's the lamp, we need a different formula, not to give up coffee, but to raise it one notch so the vessels will open and the rhythm will even out. If tomorrow morning you still rise and wobble for a second, if your calves tighten like a clothesline in a cold wind, if the man's morning grows sparse like a ferry missing its schedule, will you keep pouring in the more coffee or will you change the key? This question isn't just for your palate, it's about your agency. Maybe you don't need a second cup, maybe you just need to open the vessels before the first sip. Maybe what you lack isn't more caffeine, but a light signal that makes the body nod. All right, I'm ready to receive energy. At this very moment, if the command drink more lights up in your head, slow down by half a beat and ask yourself, am I patching a leaky pipe with tape or am I opening the valve properly? Because what happens when you're patient is completely different from what happens when you rush. On the 14th morning, you may be startled because you're no longer startled. That's when the small switch, flipped each day, has taught your body to return to its old rhythm. Calm, unshowy, but as enduring as the stone along the old bridge. Don't change the habit. Just change the way you touch it. In Mr. Duarte's kitchen, a jar of cinnamon stands right beside a jar of cacao, a knob of ginger still smudged with earth, a glass jar of coconut oil clear under the first light, and a bag of maca folded at the top with a wooden clip. He starts with cinnamon. Not much, just a dusting thin as mist over the river. Its warm scent soothes the blood sugar swing that likes to plunge after an hour, so energy no longer surges and crashes like the slope of Rua dos Clérigos. He stirs slowly and listens to his hands. Sometimes the body needs only that much to nod that the day can begin gently. On another morning, he opens a tin of pure cacao, dark as a riverbed when rain is coming. No sugar, no artificial flavorings, just a brief bitterness that melts into a warm finish. When cacao meets coffee, the vessels feel as if an extra lane opens. The mind no longer brightens in a flare. It brightens as if a window were opened. He finds himself reaching less for a second cup, needing fewer excuses to linger. On wind-bitten mornings, he switches to ginger. A thin slice is enough to warm the tongue and the palms. Ginger doesn't ring the bell. It just nudges the boat off the shore, letting blood murmur a little farther along fingers that used to be cold. Some days he emulsifies the coffee with coconut oil using a small hand blender. The foam is as fine as a fresh towel, shimmering with the light on the porch. Caffeine, then, is no longer a stone thrown into water, but an even rain. Alertness that lasts without jolts. When work demands patience, he chooses that morning. When the skies open, he returns to ginger. When paperwork calls, he trusts cacao. When he wants a steady rhythm, he trusts it cinnamon. And maca, a pinch on days when he feels the sap in his chest growing thin. It doesn't beat the drum, it keeps time backstage. A few weeks later, he notices he steps out the door more easily, as if the threshold had dropped one notch. Don't toss everything into one morning and wait for fireworks. The body after 50 doesn't like festivals, it likes ritual. Each material does one job, and they line up best when we call the right name on the right day. You can start with whatever your nose trusts most. If your stomach is sensitive, go slowly. If you're on medication, let your doctor nod first. What matters isn't copying someone else's dose, but hearing the small yes from your own body. If at this point you feel your cup of coffee has a chance to become baseline fuel instead of an alarm bell, note a tiny detail tomorrow morning. Do your hands warm faster? Does your head feel lighter, or do you simply not need a second cup? And if you like, leave a 1 in the comments as a promise to yourself. If you're still stuck, leave a 0 and write exactly one word naming where it jams. I'll go straight to that in the next video. Big changes start with a single dot. In the first week, Mr. Duarte touched only cinnamon. No 2 days were the same, but he noticed the mid-morning dip seldom appeared. In the second week, he added cacao on 3 mornings when he needed long-haul focus. On the other days, he kept everything the same so his body had something to compare. In the third week, maca stepped in on alternating days. Quiet as the person tuning strings in an orchestra, he wasn't waiting for a firework, he was looking for a longer breath. In the fourth week, he chose coconut oil on days he wanted endurance and ginger when the weather turned. Some days he flipped the choices just to make sure he wasn't dependent on anything at all. Each morning, he wrote 3 words in the small notebook beside the machine. Warm hands, clear head, quick step. No scores, no verdicts, just notes. By day 14, he was startled because he was no longer startled. When he rose from the chair, his head didn't sway a beat as before. You can do exactly the same. A thin notebook, 3 short words, 1 dot. If you like, leave a 1 and write exactly 1 word describing the first difference. If everything still feels tangled like a fishing net after rain, leave a 0 and write stuck with the exact spot. It helps me speak more accurately in the next video. What's about to happen if your patient won't be loud? It's like getting the radio dial to the right frequency and the old song returns, no cheering needed. This is health education, not a prescription. If you have heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, a sensitive stomach, or are taking regular medication, consult your doctor before changing your habits. Avoid industrial versions with sugar and flavorings. Your cup of coffee should have few ingredients but be real. Every body is a bridge. The stones aren't the same, yet they all face the shore. If one day the dots in your notebook add up, but you still feel a strange kind of fatigue, dizziness, shortness of breath, chest pain, stop and get checked. Safety always comes before any hack. Health after 50 doesn't need fireworks. It needs you to be a notch gentler with yourself. When you understand why the morning runs out of breath, you stop blaming coffee and start changing the way you touch it. Cinnamon softens the rhythm, cacao opens the flow, maca keeps time backstage, coconut oil sustains steady alertness, ginger kindles warmth. The rest is a small notebook and enough patience to write 14 dots. If this story helps ease your confusion, subscribe so you don't miss the next video. I'll hand you a printed 14 morning map and show how to read 3 signals into a picture that's easy to see. And so I can speak more precisely next time, give me a very light signal. 1 if it's helpful, 0 if you're still stuck, plus exactly 1 word naming the blockage. I read everything. Lift the cup, take a breath, and speak softly to your body as to an old friend. We're still here, and starting tomorrow morning, we'll set out slowly but surely, right here in the United States.